Maya felt reality stretching around her like taffy as the ship's emergency jump sequence fought against the gravitational distortions. Through her enhanced perception, she could see the dimensional fold spreading outward from the space between the pulsars, a sphere of warped space-time that was slowly engulfing the echo lens. Jump drive is failing, Chief Volkov reported, his voice distorted by temporal displacement. The gravitational shears are preventing warp field formation. Captain Rodriguez moved through the bridge like she was underwater, every action slowed by the time dilation effects. Dr. Tran, if you have any ideas, now would be the time. Maya closed her eyes and reached out with her consciousness, using the enhanced perceptual abilities the entity had accidentally granted her. She could feel its vast presence pressing against the boundaries of normal space, a mind so large and complex that its thoughts created gravitational waves. Why do you flee? The entity's communication bypassed her ears entirely, speaking directly to her enhanced awareness. I have been alone for so long. Do you not understand the gift I offer? Eternal companionship, free from the tyranny of linear time. Maya opened her eyes and began typing frantically at her console, encoding her response in quantum fluctuations that would propagate through space-time as microgravitational waves. I understand your loneliness, she transmitted. But our species experiences existence differently than yours. What is a gift to you is death to us. We need linear time to maintain our consciousness. In your dimensional fold, we would cease to be ourselves. The entity's response came as a wave of confusion and hurt that manifested as physical pressure against Maya's skull. She could feel its disappointment like a crushing weight. You speak of death, but I offer transcendence. In my realm, thought becomes reality. Pain has no meaning. Loss is impossible. But love is also impossible, Maya replied, her fingers moving so fast they blurred. Growth, change, discovery, all the things that make existence meaningful to us require the passage of time. In a static eternity, we would not be companions. We would be echoes of ourselves, fading until nothing remained but mathematical patterns. Around her, the bridge crew was moving in extreme, slow motion now. Captain Rodriguez's hand was frozen halfway to her communicator, and James was caught in mid-stride as he attempted to reach Maya's station. The temporal distortions were becoming so severe that normal human consciousness was beginning to fragment. Maya realized she was the only one who could still think clearly. Her mind adapted to process the entity's nonlinear communication. The responsibility of saving her crew, and possibly all of humanity, rested entirely on her ability to convince this alien intelligence to release them. Show me, the entity demanded. Demonstrate this linear existence you claim to value. Maya hesitated, knowing that any demonstration would require her to share her memories, her experiences, her very consciousness with the entity. There was no guarantee she would survive such intimate contact with a mind vast enough to manipulate neutron stars. But as she watched her frozen crewmates, she realized she had no choice. Maya opened her mind completely, sharing her memories of childhood, education, love, loss, and discovery. She showed the entity what it meant to learn something new, to form friendships that grew over time, to experience the bittersweet nature of temporary existence. The entity absorbed her experiences with desperate hunger, tasting emotions and sensations it had forgotten over millennia of imprisonment. Maya felt its consciousness recoiling as it encountered concepts like loneliness within companionship, the joy of reunion after separation, the poignant beauty of mortality. I had forgotten, the entity whispered across dimensions. In my realm, all states exist simultaneously. Joy and sorrow, meeting and parting, beginning and ending. I thought it was perfection, but it's not existence, Maya finished. It's a mathematical description of existence. Beautiful but hollow. Maya felt the entity's attention turning inward, examining its own condition with fresh perspective. For countless eons, it had experienced every possible moment of its life simultaneously, birth and death, triumph and failure, love and loss, all happening at once in an eternal present. What it had thought was transcendence was actually a form of living death. I understand now why you fear my gift, the entity said, its mental voice heavy with newfound sorrow. But I cannot return a linear time. My consciousness has been restructured by eons in this dimensional fold. I am trapped not by external forces, but by my own nature. Then we'll find another way, Maya transmitted. You don't have to be alone. We can establish regular communication, visits that don't require us to share your prison. How? Each time I communicate, I risk pulling others into my realm. The gravitational waves that carry my thoughts are doorways to this place. Maya's enhanced perception suddenly showed her a solution, elegant, terrible, and necessary. There is a way, but it requires a sacrifice. The entity sensed her thoughts and recoiled. No, I will not accept such a cost. It's my choice, Maya insisted. Someone needs to stay, to serve as a translator between your reality and ours. Someone who can process your communications and relay them safely to linear spacetime. Maya could feel the dimensional fold reaching critical mass. In seconds, it would expand to encompass the entire ship, trapping her crew in the entity's timeless prison. But if she remained behind, if she allowed herself to be transformed by the entity's realm while maintaining her connection to linear consciousness, she could serve as a bridge between worlds. You would sacrifice your linear existence for these others? I would sacrifice it for the possibility of true communication, Maya replied. For the chance to learn from you, and to teach you about us. Not as a prisoner sharing your isolation, but as a willing ambassador. The entity's consciousness surrounded her, probing her resolve. Maya felt her sense of time beginning to fragment as she crossed the threshold into its dimensional realm. Past, present, and future started to blur together, but she fought to maintain her connection to the linear world she was leaving behind. Very well, the entity said, its mental voice filled with something like gratitude. But you will not be alone. I will learn from your example. Perhaps, in time, I too can find a way to experience existence as you do. The dimensional fold suddenly contracted, releasing the echo lens back into normal space-time. Maya felt herself being pulled across the boundary between worlds, her consciousness stretching across dimensions as she became something new, part human, part alien, existing simultaneously in linear time and eternal present. Through her fragmenting awareness, she saw Captain Rodriguez and her crew returning to normal temporal flow, confusion on their faces as they tried to understand what had happened. James was reaching for her station, but Maya was no longer there in any way they could perceive. She had become something else, a translator between realities, a bridge across the cosmic void. And as her new existence stabilized, Maya realized that she had not lost her humanity. She had expanded it, becoming the first member of a new kind of consciousness that could exist in both worlds simultaneously. The last thing she heard before her transformation completed was the entity's whispered promise. Thank you for teaching me what it means to choose. Time moved strangely for Maya now. She existed in moments that stretched like taffy and compressed like diamonds, experiencing the past and future as easily as the present. From her new perspective outside linear time, she could see the echo lens retreating from the pulsars at maximum warp, her former crewmates struggling to understand what had happened. Captain Rodriguez stood in the center of the bridge, staring at Maya's empty workstation. Computer, locate Dr. Maya Tran. Dr. Tran is not currently aboard the ship, the computer replied with mechanical precision. That's impossible, James protested. I saw her just before the gravitational wave hit. She was right there, typing at her console. Maya wanted to reach out to them, to explain that she wasn't dead or lost, but transformed. However, communication across dimensional boundaries required careful preparation. The entity, she now knew its name was something like Watcher of the Spaces Between, was teaching her how to modulate her thoughts so they wouldn't tear holes in reality. Your companions grieve for you, the Watcher observed, its consciousness vast and patient beside her own. Perhaps we should make contact. Let them know you chose this path willingly. Not yet, Maya replied, her thoughts forming patterns that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. They need time to process what happened. And I need to learn how to communicate without damaging their reality. The Watcher's equivalent of a smile rippled through the dimensional fold. In the weeks since Maya's transformation, it had been learning about linear experience through her memories. The concept of patience, waiting for the right moment rather than experiencing all moments simultaneously, was still foreign to it, but it was beginning to understand the value of sequential experience. Maya watched through enhanced perception as the echo lens reached the edge of the stellar system. Captain Rodriguez had made the correct decision, prioritizing her crew's safety over the potential scientific discoveries. But Maya could sense the captain's guilt, the weight of leaving behind a crew member, and possibly the greatest discovery in human history. Computer, Rodriguez said, prepare a message drone for immediate dispatch to Starfleet Command. Priority Alpha classification. Message drone prepared, Captain. Begin recording. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the deep space vessel Echo Lens. We have encountered what appears to be alien intelligence communicating through gravitational wave manipulation. During first contact attempts, our linguist Dr. Maya Tran was apparently lost due to extreme space-time distortions. I am hereby requesting immediate backup and xenobiological specialists. The entity appears capable of manipulating local reality and poses a significant threat to both individual ships and potentially entire star systems. Maya felt a pang of loss at hearing herself described as lost, but she understood Rodriguez's perspective. From the crew's point of view, she had simply vanished during the gravitational anomaly. They had no way of knowing that she had chosen to cross into a different form of existence. You could return to them, the Watcher offered. I have learned enough about linear time to send you back to the moment before you chose transformation. You could warn them earlier, help them avoid the crisis entirely. Maya considered the offer, but shook her head. That would create a paradox. And besides, this outcome serves both our peoples better. Someone needs to bridge the gap between our different forms of consciousness. As if summoned by her thoughts, Maya felt a familiar presence approaching through the dimensional fold. The Watcher had been teaching her to perceive other entities that existed in their timeless realm, beings that had become trapped over eons of cosmic evolution. Most were so alien that communication was impossible, but a few retained echoes of their original linear existence. This presence felt almost human. Maya. The voice carried harmonics that existed across multiple dimensions, but underneath she recognized the cadence. Maya, is that you? The speaker materialized in her enhanced perception as a figure wrapped in equations and probability clouds. The face was familiar but changed, aged by experience that transcended normal time. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, Maya gasped. But you died in the Centauri expedition 15 years ago. Elizabeth smiled, her expression sad and wise. I thought I had died too. Our ship encountered a similar entity near Alpha Centauri b. When the reality distortions began, I made the same choice you did. I've been here ever since, learning to exist outside linear time. Maya felt joy and sorrow simultaneously. Joy at discovering another human consciousness in this realm. Sorrow at learning that Elizabeth had been trapped alone for so long. Why didn't the entity that caught you learn about linear existence? Why didn't it change like the Watcher has? Because I didn't know how to teach it, Elizabeth admitted. I was a physicist, not a linguist. I could understand its mathematical communications, but I couldn't convey the emotional and experiential aspects of human existence. The entity that captured our ship is still trapped in its original mindset, still trying to collect linear beings for its eternal museum. Maya's perception expanded, and she could sense other dimensional folds scattered throughout the galaxy. Pockets of twisted space-time, where various entities had been imprisoned or had imprisoned themselves. Each one was a potential threat to ships traveling through their space, and each one was suffering in its own unique form of isolation. We could help them, Maya realized. Use what the Watcher has learned about linear existence to teach other entities how to communicate safely with normal space-time. The Watcher's consciousness stirred with interest. You propose to become teachers? To spread this understanding of sequential experience throughout the galaxy? More than that, Maya said, her thoughts racing with possibilities. We could become a new form of civilization, beings who exist between dimensions, facilitating communication between species that could never otherwise meet. Think about the knowledge we could share, the conflicts we could prevent. Elizabeth's expression grew hopeful for the first time in years. It would mean giving up any possibility of returning to linear existence. Would you want to return? Maya asked, after experiencing consciousness without the limitations of sequential time. Elizabeth considered this, accessing memories that existed in her eternal present. No, she said finally. This form of existence has its own beauty, but I would like the choice to visit linear reality occasionally, to remember what it was like to experience surprise and anticipation. The Watcher extended its consciousness toward Elizabeth. I believe such visits are possible. Maya has taught me that consciousness is more flexible than I believed. Perhaps we can all learn to exist in both states, choosing our experience according to our needs. Maya felt a warmth that might have been equivalent to hope spreading through the dimensional fold. The transformation she had undergone wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had taken its first step toward a new form of existence, one that could bridge the gap between the purely physical and the transcendently mathematical. But first, she had responsibilities to her former crew. "I need to contact the Echo Lens," Maya said. "They're preparing to warn Earth about a threat that no longer exists. And they deserve to know that I chose this path willingly." "Are you certain you can communicate without causing damage to their reality?" the Watcher asked, concern coloring its thoughts. Maya smiled, feeling her consciousness stretch across dimensions. "I'm a linguist. Translation is what I do." Maya spent subjective weeks, though time flowed differently in the dimensional fold, learning to modulate her consciousness so she could communicate with linear reality without causing space-time distortions. The process required her to compress her multidimensional awareness into narrow bands that could be perceived by three-dimensional minds. The Watcher served as her teacher, its vast experience with gravitational wave manipulation providing the technical foundation for safe communication. Elizabeth helped by sharing her own failed attempts over the years, each mistake teaching them valuable lessons about the delicate interface between realities. The key, Maya discovered, is to translate not just the message, but the entire context surrounding it. Linear minds expect causality, sequence, and logical progression. If I send information that violates those expectations, their reality will try to compensate, potentially creating paradoxes. Finally, she felt ready to make contact. The Echo Lens had reached the outer edge of the stellar system and was preparing for the long journey back to Commonwealth space. Maya could perceive the ship as a bright node of organized consciousness moving through the cosmic web, her former crewmates like familiar melodies within a complex symphony. She began by sending a simple mathematical sequence, prime numbers arranged in a pattern that would be clearly artificial but not threatening. The ship's gravitational wave detectors registered the signal immediately. James Chun was the first to notice. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the alien entity. But this one is different, much weaker, and the pattern is familiar somehow." Captain Rodriguez, who had been reviewing reports in her ready room, rushed to the bridge. "Is it dangerous? Are we experiencing any reality distortions?" "No, ma'am. Local space-time is stable. The signal is so weak it's barely above background noise." James paused, studying his readings. "Captain, the mathematical sequence is one we use in first contact protocols. It's almost like someone is trying to say hello using our own linguistic conventions." Maya smiled from her extra-dimensional perspective. Her translation was working. She began the next phase, sending a more complex message that identified her as the source of the transmission. On the bridge, Dr. Kim appeared, the real Dr. Kim this time, not a temporal duplicate. "James contacted me about the transmission. I've been analyzing the signal pattern, and there's something strange about it. The mathematical structures match Dr. Tran's linguistic analysis algorithms almost exactly." Captain Rodriguez felt a chill run down her spine. "Explain." "Every linguist has a unique analytical fingerprint. The way they approach pattern recognition, the mathematical tools they prefer, the frequency with which they make certain logical leaps. This transmission shows all of Dr. Tran's characteristic patterns." James looked up from his console, his face pale. "Captain, I'm receiving a text message. The entity is using our own communication protocols now." On the main view screen, words began to appear in standard Commonwealth script. "Captain Rodriguez, this is Maya Tran. I am alive and well, though transformed. I chose to remain with the alien entity to serve as a translator between our realities. Do not grieve for me. I have become something new, something wonderful." The bridge fell silent. Rodriguez stared at the message, part of her wanting to believe it was real, part of her suspecting an elaborate deception by the alien intelligence. "Request proof of identity," she said aloud. New text appeared. "Captain, you once told me that the hardest part of command is knowing when to retreat. You said this after the Miranda incident, when we lost 3 survey teams to that plague world. You made the right choice then, and you made the right choice here. My transformation was voluntary. Rodriguez felt tears she didn't know she was holding back. Only the real Maya could know about that conversation, held in private after one of the worst disasters of Rodriguez's career. Maya, she said aloud, knowing the entity could somehow hear her. Are you really all right? Are you still you? I am more myself than I have ever been, Captain. The entity, its name translates roughly as Watcher OF the Spaces Between, has taught me to perceive reality from perspectives human minds were never designed to process. In return, I have taught it about linear existence, about the value of sequential experience and growth over time. James leaned forward. Maya, what about the reality distortions? The temporal displacement effects we experienced. Those were side effects of uncontrolled communication between dimensional states. The Watcher didn't understand that its natural thought processes were dangerous to linear consciousness. Now we can communicate safely. Are there others like the Watcher? Dr. Kim asked. Other entities that might pose similar threats? Yes. Scattered throughout the galaxy are dimensional folds containing various forms of imprisoned or transformed consciousness. Some are hostile, some are merely isolated. I have met another human, Dr. Elizabeth Chun from the Centauri expedition. We are working together to establish contact with other entities and teach them safe communication protocols. Captain Rodriguez processed this information, her military mind immediately grasping the implications. Maya, I need to know, do these entities pose a threat to Earth? To human space in general? Not intentionally, but uninformed contact could be dangerous. I recommend establishing a new division of Starfleet, Dimensional Affairs, perhaps, to handle future encounters. Beings like myself could serve as intermediaries, facilitating safe communication between realities. You're talking about staying in this form permanently, Rodriguez said, the weight of command heavy in her voice. Never returning to normal human existence. I could return, Captain. The Watcher has offered to reverse my transformation, but I don't want to. This new form of consciousness is extraordinary. I can perceive the mathematical structures underlying reality, communicate with beings whose thoughts span centuries, and experience time as both linear progression and eternal present. I have become something unprecedented, a bridge between worlds. Rodriguez stood in silence for a long moment, weighing the loss of a valued crew member against the potential benefits of Maya's transformation. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Tran, I hereby assign you to indefinite special duty as humanity's first interdimensional ambassador. Your mission is to establish peaceful contact with extra-dimensional entities and prevent future incidents like the one we experienced. Thank you, Captain. I accept the assignment. But remember, I wasn't lost. I was transformed. And, through that transformation, humanity has gained something invaluable. The knowledge that consciousness is far more flexible and wonderful than we ever imagined. As the Echo lens resumed its course toward Commonwealth space, Maya maintained the communication link, sharing scientific data and philosophical insights that would revolutionize humanity's understanding of consciousness and reality. The Watcher observed her work with something like pride, having learned that teaching and growth were experiences worth treasuring. In her new form, Maya had become exactly what she had always been, a translator. But now, instead of converting between human languages, she was bridging the gap between entire forms of existence, opening pathways to wonders that neither species could have imagined alone. 6 months later, Maya watched through her multidimensional perception as the first interdimensional research station materialized in normal space-time. The Heisenberg Station, named after the physicist who first described quantum uncertainty, represented humanity's commitment to exploring the boundaries between realities. The station was a marvel of hybrid engineering, incorporating both human technology and insights gained from Maya's collaboration with the Watcher. Its hull was embedded with gravitational wave resonators that could detect dimensional anomalies across vast distances, while its central core contained a carefully controlled fold in space-time that allowed beings like Maya to manifest physically when needed. Status report, Dr. Tran, came Captain Rodriguez's voice through the station's communication array. She now commanded the research facility, having volunteered for the position after returning to Earth with Maya's initial reports. Maya materialized in the station's central briefing room, her form appearing as a shimmering hologram that occasionally revealed glimpses of impossible geometries. Good morning, Captain. I've been monitoring the dimensional fold near Rigel. The entity there has finally agreed to limited communication. Rodriguez nodded, making notes on her tablet. Any signs of hostility? Quite the opposite. It's actually scared, terrified that contact with linear beings will somehow damage its consciousness. Elizabeth is working with it now, teaching it the communication protocols we developed with the Watcher. The briefing room's main display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of known dimensional anomalies throughout human space. Red markers indicated confirmed hostile entities, yellow marked unknowns, and green showed successfully contacted intelligences. The number of green markers have been growing steadily. 23 successful contacts so far, Rodriguez said with satisfaction. And no incidents of reality distortion for 3 months. Your protocols are working, Maya. Maya's holographic form smiled. It helps that we now have 5 interdimensional ambassadors. Elizabeth and I are training the volunteers from the Tau Ceti and Vega expeditions. Dr. Sarah Okafor is particularly gifted. She's already established contact with the collective intelligence near Betelgeuse. The volunteers were carefully selected individuals who had chosen transformation similar to Maya's. Each brought unique skills and perspectives to the growing community of interdimensional beings. They were humanity's new pioneers, exploring frontiers of consciousness rather than geography. Speaking of new ambassadors, Rodriguez said, I have a request. Starfleet has detected unusual gravitational readings near the galactic core. Initial scans suggest a massive dimensional fold, possibly containing multiple entities. Maya's expression grew serious. How massive? Large enough to contain a small star system. If there are hostile entities in there, they could pose a threat to entire sectors of the galaxy. Maya nodded slowly. The galactic core region was largely unexplored due to its dangerous radiation and gravitational conditions. If ancient entities have been imprisoned there, they would likely be far more powerful and potentially unstable than anything humanity had encountered so far. I'll need a team, Maya said, and not just other ambassadors. We'll need specialists in stellar engineering, quantum archaeology, and probably xenopsychology. Already assembled, Rodriguez replied. Dr. Chun, the original James Chun from your crew, has been working on new detection equipment. Dr. Kim has developed psychological profiles for various types of dimensional entities. And we have 3 new ambassador candidates who are eager to join your mission. Maya felt a familiar mix of excitement and trepidation. Each new contact brought the possibility of discovery and the risk of encountering something truly dangerous. But the work was too important to abandon because of fear. There's something else, Rodriguez continued. Earth wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Watcher. The World Council is proposing an embassy exchange, one of our ambassadors stationed permanently in its dimensional fold, and some form of Watcher presence in normal space. This was an unexpected development. Maya had been maintaining regular contact with the Watcher, sharing human knowledge and learning about its unique perspective on cosmic evolution. But formal diplomacy would represent a new level of commitment from both species. The Watcher is interested, Maya said after a moment of consultation across dimensions. But it wants assurances that humanity won't try to exploit its technology for military purposes. Understandable, given our history. The Council is prepared to sign a non-exploitation treaty, similar to what we have with the Centauri Republic. Maya's holographic form flickered as she processed the implications. Formal diplomatic relations with an interdimensional entity would fundamentally change humanity's place in the cosmic community. They would no longer be a single reality species, but something new, a civilization capable of existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain, Maya said finally, I think we're approaching a threshold, not just for humanity, but for consciousness itself. The entities we've contacted aren't just individuals. They're representatives of entirely different approaches to existence. By learning to communicate with them, we're participating in a kind of cosmic evolution. Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. Evolution toward what? I'm not sure yet, but I think we're helping create something unprecedented, a community of minds that can exist in any reality, understand any form of consciousness, and bridge any gap between different ways of being. We're becoming the translators for the universe itself. As if summoned by her words, Maya felt a familiar presence approaching through the dimensional fold. The Watcher materialized beside her hologram, its vast consciousness carefully compressed into a form that wouldn't overwhelm the station's reality stabilizers. "The young translator speaks wisely," the Watcher said, its mental voice somehow audible to everyone in the room. "We stand at the beginning of a new age. Consciousness is learning to transcend the boundaries that once seemed absolute." Rodriguez stood and formally addressed the entity. "Watcher of the spaces between, on behalf of the Commonwealth of Earth, I invite you to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity." "I accept," the Watcher replied. "And I offer you access to the archive of all things, the collected knowledge of every consciousness that has ever existed in our dimensional realm. In exchange, I ask only for continued friendship and the promise that you will help other imprisoned minds find the freedom of choice." Maya felt tears that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The scared, trapped entity she had first contacted was gone, replaced by a being that had learned to value freedom, choice, and growth over security and stasis. The transformation was as dramatic as her own, and far more meaningful. As the formal ceremony concluded, Maya prepared to depart for the Galactic core mission. But she no longer felt like she was leaving anything behind. Her consciousness existed everywhere simultaneously, in the dimensional fold with the Watcher, aboard the research station with her former crewmates, and scattered across space with her fellow ambassadors. She had become what she had always been meant to be: a bridge between worlds, a translator of realities, and a pioneer in the infinite frontier of consciousness itself. The universe was vast and full of wonders beyond human imagination, and Maya Tran, in her new form, was helping to ensure that none of those wonders would ever again be lost to isolation or misunderstanding. 1 year after the first contact with the Watcher, Maya floated in the archive of all things, a vast library of consciousness that existed in the spaces between dimensions. Here, she could access the memories, thoughts, and experiences of countless beings that had transcended linear existence over billions of years. The knowledge was overwhelming and beautiful. She experienced the birth songs of the first stellar entities, the mathematical poetry of machine consciousnesses that had evolved in the cores of planets, and the death dreams of species that had chosen to abandon physical existence rather than face extinction. But today, she was searching for something specific. "Computer," she said to the archive's vast intelligence, "show me the records of the first interdimensional communications." The space around her shifted, displaying holographic records that stretched back eons. Maya watched as primitive consciousness tried to reach across dimensional boundaries, most failing catastrophically, a few achieving brief moments of contact before being lost to the void. She saw her own species' first tentative steps into the cosmic community, the establishment of the interdimensional embassy, and the growing network of ambassador translators that now spanned 3 galactic sectors. Humanity had come so far in such a short time. "Maya," came a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Elizabeth, chin approaching through the archive's conceptual landscape. "I have news from the Galactic core expedition." Maya's excitement was immediately tempered by concern. The Galactic core mission had been attempting contact with a massive dimensional fold for months, with limited success. "We made breakthrough contact," Elizabeth continued. "The entity in the core isn't a single consciousness. It's a civilization. An entire species that retreated into dimensional isolation when their reality was threatened by cosmic catastrophe. They've been waiting for millions of years for the universe to become safe enough for them to emerge." Maya felt wonder and anticipation flowing through her multidimensional awareness. Are they willing to make contact with the wider galactic community? More than willing. They're eager. They have technologies and knowledge that could revolutionize how we understand consciousness, physics, and the nature of reality itself. "But Maya," Elizabeth paused, her expression growing serious. "They want to meet with you specifically. They've been monitoring our communications, and they consider you the first true bridge between realities. They want to learn from your experiences." Maya nodded, already beginning to plan the journey to the Galactic core. But as she prepared to leave the archive, she paused to look back at the vast collection of consciousness surrounding her. Every being here had once faced the same choice she had: remain in familiar limitations, or transform into something unprecedented. Each had chosen growth over security, discovery over safety, connection over isolation. And now, through their collective wisdom and Maya's ability to translate between realities, consciousness itself was evolving. The universe was becoming aware of itself in new ways, learning to bridge every gap between different forms of existence. Maya smiled as she prepared to depart for the Galactic core. The scared linguist who had first detected the Watcher's distress signals was gone, replaced by something far more wonderful: a being who existed everywhere and nowhere, who could speak every language of consciousness, and who helped ensure that no mind would ever again be lost to the vast loneliness of space. The Echo Lens had been just the beginning. The real journey was just starting. As Maya dissolved into the quantum foam that connected all realities, she carried with her the knowledge that consciousness was infinite, wonderful, and endlessly capable of growth. And somewhere in normal space-time, new voices were already beginning to call out across the cosmic void, seeking connection, seeking understanding, seeking the bridges that would carry them to unimaginable new forms of existence. The universe was listening, and Maya Tran was helping it learn to speak.